This morning with Sadako Oki, we saw, and in the catalog you will read, the reason why it has been so important to have an international team involved in working on this exhibition. Sadako brings to the study of calligraphy lifelong practice as a calligrapher herself, and this remarkable passion and insight that comes from the inside, from making calligraphy herself and thinking about it, not only with her mind, but with her body. Our next speaker, Professor Shimao from Gakushūin University, also is a practitioner of calligraphy. And he, in his essay, he so laments that in this world when, it was bad enough when people were only creating characters with pens, ballpoint pens, but now when all you have to do is type something with your thumbs, you don't even have to go through the strokes. Really, the world has gone to hell in a handbasket. But in any case, once again, we will have a wonderful inside perspective on the world of brush and ink. And now, without further ado, Professor Arata Shimao.
Thank you for kind introduction. And first, I want to express my thanks to everyone who organized this exhibition and the symposium. And 2 years ago, I went to Seattle with Mildred and did research on paintings at Kobayashi-san's house. And it was the start point of this exhibition for me. And now I'm very happy to be here. I can see the wonderful display in the galleries and then have a chance to talk on ink painting here. And thank you very much, Kobayashi-san. And Greville-san, ご苦労様でした. And in this talk, I'd like to introduce the unique expressive qualities of ink painting, Suibokuga in Japanese. And starting from the very basic things, and then I'll going to appreciate the masterpieces of Koba's collection. Suibokuga uses black ink, water, and a brush to create art that breathes life onto a white surface of paper or silk. It can impart a variety of tones from the palest gray to the deepest black. Water allows for infinite gradations and shading, while the brush relays the gesture of the hand, whether it be one of food, elegance, or dynamic power. With these three elements working together, a diversity of expressions can be realized depending on the artist's choices. And this is a landscape by Wu Ichi, a contemporary Chinese artist living in Japan. This mountain is the style is following the style of Northern Sun landscape painting from 11th to 20th century China. But the expression is completely different. And the bottom of the mountain looks like as if it were glimmering. It is uncertain whether this is due to the snow or mist in front of the mountain. But of course, a painting cannot shine or glimmer by itself. Rather, this gleaming effect is caused by the surface of the paper. This is one example of the magic of Russian ink. This is another example by Ma Xiao, another contemporary Chinese artist. This painting is almost abstract, but by adding a moon here, the pattern of the ink transforms into an expression of crowd. And I love ink painting. One reason is this. The ink itself is beautiful. And to understand this phenomenon, let's take a quick look at some tools. I want to start from the brush. I brought one here. And so sometimes I do the gesture of the drawing and the painting. And here is an assortment of brushes. For most of them, the head is made with hair of animals like rabbit, weasel, or deer, etc. But anything can be used for brush head as long as it can apply ink on paper or silk. This one is made by the feather of cook. We call keimohitsu. And the lift is bamboo, and right is stone. And the nature of brush directly reflects the motives behind the artist's expression. And this is fudeකුsa. Namely, the name is radio brush glass. It's this one. The name is fudeකුsa Carex kobomugi. It's academic name. And the kobomugi is completely Japanese. And this is a famous screen by Hasegawa Tohaku, a pine trees in the mist. And it looks like very calm, but the brushwork is very rough. Probably this was done by this type, warafude. The brush made with straw. And this is a Buddha, a sage of Zen Buddhism by Sengai, a famous Zen monk in late Edo period. And you're so cute, and I love this hip line. And maybe you can see the color of the ink is different inside and between inside and outside. And we can do it in this way. This is a 3 ink method. So put the light ink first into the fude, and then dark ink. And it goes into the head, and then light, middle, and dark. And using this method, we can draw this kind of line, and this and this and this. This is the basic technique of Shimao, Suibokuga. So, Sengai, very fond of this technique, and so we, you can see here and here and here, so everywhere. And then going to sumi. Sumi is a very simple pigment that it's a soot hardened with animal or fish glue, nikawa. So the chemical composition of sumi is very simple: carbon, protein, and a small amount of impurities. And sumi, this is the factory of sumi. The feeling is also very sacred place, like church. And there is a sort of a cover there, and then you can correct the suit like this. And then mixed with Nikawa, animal glue, and then put into the wood mold, and then dry it like this, and then this is the last form. And this is a Tama Art University, my former workplace. The atelier, and he is Nakano Yoshiyuki sensei, the famous painter, contemporary painter. And this is an old sumi, Ming Dynasty. It means 500 years ago. And this. And I tried too, but I'm so happy to, such an old sumi. And I'm a little bit young. And if this is a big one, and so, and and then the sumi, that is sumi in water. It's particles from the food become wrapped with animal glue, and it becomes a colloidal mixture. So, this flower is a simple example that shows how sumi moves on and in paper. Anyone can draw this. And the painter, Hino-san, the first is the line of stem, and then just draw a small circle here. And then, I'm sorry for my handwriting, but I couldn't have time to do it by illustrator. So when it dropped, the sumi moved from fude, and then first the water spread, and this is the trace of that. Here, this is the edge of the water, and the color of yellow, this is nikawa, animal glue contained in water. And then the nikawa carries sumi to here, and so this part is the Hino-san, the painted drawer. This is a sumi on the Japanese paper. So this flower is made by movement of sumi on Japanese paper. It was formed by the power of nature, not by the human hand. And this claim with chrysanthemums is by Ito Jakushu, a painter of 18th century Kyoto. His point of expression is the patterning of the crane's feathers. It almost resembles the chrysanthemums. So the crane's wearing the chrysanthemums, right? And these patterns are not drawn by brush. This part is drawn by brush. But this white line, or gray line, is not drawn by artist's hands. And these flying beings on the ocean, This is a very simple example. We can draw a, a painting with water. This is the dots of water put on the paper. Just and cover the dark ink, and then the water repels the sumi by a surface tension, and so it remains like this. Now, I cannot explain deeply, but this is the same thing. So draw this line, and this is the water part, and then overlap this line, and the water repels the ink, and so these lines remain. And then Gakushūin made this pattern. And this is the variation of the ink is the same. The paper is different in the vertical line, and water is same in the horizontal line. This is by contrast. The very hard water, good for health. I don't know. I don't like this one. Once I made coffee with this water, it was awful. But anyway, so this difference between according to what depends on the water and the paper. Now, move on to appreciate ink paintings in collection. The first is not this is not a painting, but I want to start with brushworks. And this is by Ikkyu Sojun. The calligrapher was one of the most famous Zen monks in Japanese history. He was known for wild behavior and crazy defiance of convention. And there is even a portrait depicting him holding a great sword, handling an implement associated with a quiet life of Buddhist meditation. Yet this same man is credited with the revival of the great monastery of Daitokuji in Kyoto, and had many other accomplishments appropriate to a high-ranking leader in the Zen sect. Here, the ink traces show the eccentricity of the truly expositional man, the dynamic brushworks with the extreme variation in the size categorizes the style of calligraphy as kyoso. Mad cassette. Even if you cannot read the characters, you can see the trammeled line made possible by brush and ink. Try to imagine the dynamic movement of Ikkyu's hand, and possibly you can sense Ikkyu's manner. The words inscribed here quote a classical Buddhist text, but Ikkyu's calligraphy makes the characters more than semiotic signs. He has conveyed the content of the text in visual form. And the subject here is Fei Changfang. Changfang. So, sorry, I'm not good at four voices. And a Chinese Taoist immortal, he carried bamboo staff that could magically transport him anywhere. When he threw it into a lake, it turned into the dragon. And here is the bamboo staff. And here's the dragon. Maybe you cannot see, so this is bamboo staff. And here's the dragon. This is the head of the dragon. And the gesture of Fei Chanfang, 難しいね, suggests he is facing the dragon rising from the lake. So in this painting, 3 different moments in time are depicted. The compositional device of showing successive events within a single picture frame demonstrated here is frequently employed in Japanese painting. The painting in terms of brushwork, line of sumi, the artist selected the proper type according to the subject. And for instance, these are 3 types of brushworks depicting a robe or closet. In China, lines are categorized into 18 patterns called 18byō, Shiba Myo, in 16th century. These are the 18 examples using waves. I cannot explain each of these, but the system, the painter selected this relatively simple curve for this Chinese remodel, and we can see it is effective to express the story of Fei Chanfang. So drop the bamboo here, and then it became a dragon, and then Fei, look at the dragon. And the time's over. And for that, this line fits. Probably you can understand that this type doesn't fit that kind of subject. And grapes are favorite subject for artists because their form are well suited to ink paintings. In this painting, the vines are painted with fine, quick lines. For the fruit, the artist has layered dark ink onto light ink. You can see here, or you can see on the edge, there's a light ink. And the leaves are defined with a light ink wash and then splashed with layers of darker ink while this ink is still wet. And effect that the varies from leaf to leaf, effectively suggesting volume. Overall, the composition is well designed and achieving the handsome balance between light and dark tones, soft and sharp shapes, wet and dry ink. It is tempting to forget the grapes and simply admire this work as abstract patterns of ink. The artist of this painting, Motsurin Choto, was a favorite disciple of Ikkyu Soju. And this is a combination of color and ink. The same thing is happened here. The way of depicting is almost same as this part. Put dark ink on the wet light ink. This is put pigment, color pigment, using color pigment, doing and do same thing. In ink painting, even the unpainted portions of work can be an expression of something. These egrets are not painted. Their white bodies are the color of the paper. With the form defined by the surrounding ink, this part, and in a technique known as exterior shading, we call Sotoguma. Here in a masterful demonstration of this pictorial device, Soei, the painter, has persuasively lined the plumage of a pair of white eaglets, imbuing them with a sense of softness. In contrast, the fine sharp lines and the dark ink of the beaks, legs, and tails add a crisp tautness to the composition, and work in concert with the linear outlines of the wreath here to create a pleasing rhythm. The white egret has come to represent an abiding purity in spite of the surrounding circumstances. However, there is not so strong sense of symbolism here. The creature in the back, nestled with its eyes closed, is probably the female, and the taller bird in front, the male. We may simply enjoy the lyrical emotions engendered by the naturalistic portrayal of two white birds calmly gazing out over a pond. And the two water buffaloes carry two boys across a river, followed by a calf, perhaps the animals from the family, with the father in front and the calf close behind in his mother's wake. In ordinary painting of oxen, the fur is painted with a very fine lines, kegaki. And then form the rounded contour of the body and suggesting the feel of the fur's texture. In contrast, in this painting, the scratchy touch of the ink impacts the softness to the bodies of the animals. Moreover, the ink color overall is thin. It is only in the accent where the really dark ink is used, such as on the animal's eyes and tips of the horns. Oh, sorry. We cannot see traces of fude, strong brushstroke here. This sparing use of ink wash is known as Moryoga, Wang Lianghua, and originated with the Southern Sun Chan monk, Ri Rong Jiu. Known for his painting of accent, ink washes so pale they seem to disappear. Painting a composed half shadow, just the barest suggestion of form, which is very elusiveness symbolizes the linear reality. The ink becomes paler and paler until the end of the end it disappears, making this a style of painting and exercise in self-eraser. As if to say that the nothingness is denoted. The paper itself is the ultimate painting, because we can imagine everything in white paper. However, one may wish to interpret it. This is what can certainly be called ink painting minimalism. In this painting, the ink is not quite that pale, though it definitely falls within the stream of Mo-ryoga, Wanlianhua. The same feeling can be seen in landscape painting. Sorry. From this painting, what one senses immediately is a very subtle stillness, quite unlike most ink paintings. One of the fundamental characteristics of ink painting is that the artist will control pressure on the brush to produce lines that vary from thick to thin. In this scroll on the right, trees and buildings tinged with pale blue or pinkish red seek to drift gently upward out of the obscurity. Above them flows the full moon. Comparing with the landscape depicted by Saito Taoist, we can easily see the differences between the two. It's too clear, so maybe you don't need explanation. And in the scroll on the left, the witness of the snow-covered trees, the icy waterfall, and the towering peaks create an impression that the entire land mass is suspended, weightless in the chill winter air. These are trees, and the right is this one, and the left is Taoist's landscape. The overall effect is one of magical elegance. This sort of quiet lyricism is nowhere to be found in China, the birthplace of ink painting. The painter Iwasa Matabe is best remembered for lively genre scenes and pictorial narratives populated by his uniquely formed figures with their dynamic poses. These landscapes are completely different from what is typically expected of Matabe's work, and as such, they are particularly precious. I love this one, the very calm and tender scene, and the pose of the fisherman here. This ink landscape is horizontal in format and of unusual width. The composition is like the hand scroll painting. The painter Kano Tanyu was at the heart of the Kano school in Edo in 7th century. What one notices immediately is that there are wide areas of open spaces. In ink painting, as I said before, unpainted blank area of paper or silk are not empty space, but rather of portentous presence. Through suggestion rather than definition, the painter invites the viewer to the complete image. In this work, for example, the misted curves around the base of central mountain is unpainted silk. The snowy peaks in the distance at the far left are also unpainted, being defined by the dark sky behind them, rendered as a lighting wash. That is not to say that the unpainted area between the central mountain and the snowy peaks are all haze. This part. All haze or mist. The two landscape elements are separated by a wide expanse of water, but there is no clear horizon delineating water from mist or sky. The space is deliberately ambiguous. Japanese culture places great importance on the sense of distance between one thing and another. We call ma. The character is aida, the space between something and something. But often leaves at the distance to be intuited rather than clearly defined. Tanyu is a genius at capturing this ambiguity, which is the key to the serene refinement of this painting. At the end, I'd like to add that Suibokuga is not simply something to look at. Historically, the customers of ink painting were also its producers, in the sense that the audience for these works were the literati members of society who used brush and ink every day. That experience, that personal familiarity with the idiosyncratic of the medium, meant that the people had an ingrained ability to judge whether the brushstroke was accomplished or not, or whether a painting was ambitious or simple. So, in a sense, we need a, So, I don't know, Fude and Sumi are selling here, but I recommend you to try once to do this. And video program is going at the gallery outside, but it's a little bit too formal. And we can play just with Fude and the ink and the border. So we can draw an ink painting. So everyone can do that. That's the possibility of ink painting, and many amateurs supported the history of the ink painting. And so, please try brush and ink. Thank you very much.
Hi. With the Tosa school, you have a lot of very fine lines, and in some of your really small paintings, you have some very, very fine lines. Were there other tools besides a brush that was used almost like a pen to create lines that small?
Your question is on the tools, Fude? Oh, Fude? And now, at present, here, for instance, this one called menso. Men is a face, and so it's a figurative expression, but this is for a very thin line, and most thin one needs a brush with only one hair of it. And sometimes we draw a very strong line, strong thin line. One here, or for instance, for water buffalo or that kind of big animals. And I omitted today, but basically the fude, the character of fude is decided by the length of the head and the shape of the head. This is, and this is flat. And other thing is we call 保水力, the ability of keep water. How much ink can be kept in the head of the. So as you know, the big animals, the hair of big animals can keep more water because they have to, defend their body from the rain or the water. So, if you use only one hair of the water buffalo, the big water buffalo, and I don't know it's true or a fiction, but Nakano Sensei, that painter, uses, miminoke, hair of ear of water buffalo. I don't know if it's a joke or not, but but anyway, using that, I'm sorry. Anyway, using that, he can draw a line of, I don't remember, but almost 3 meters or.
I have a question about basic ink painting. Can you ever, or have you observed people removing ink from the image they create?
Oh, remove.
Yes. Is it possible? I mean, is that?
Yeah, it's almost impossible.
It does happen, right?
No. Of course, and partly it's possible, but it's impossible to remove ink completely. So in contrast, oil painting can washed, and even the Nihonga, Japanese painting can wash. It's but the ink painting, it's impossible.
So all the mists that are created are because ink did not go there, right?
Mm-hmm. And for instance, it's impossible to do here. So what happened is, but it can be removed with paper. So if you grant, もっと説明して。英語は難しいですね。
So that's a legitimate procedure then. If you want to take something off, you blot it, right? No. Oh.
No, we cannot remove this. So if we want to paint something here, so remove with paper itself, the surface of the paper. If I can write up,
Once the ink is absorbed into the paper through capillary action, it can't come out. So if you made a mistake, first of all, you're a bad painter and you should go and apologize to the ink gods. But you have to abrade the surface of the paper.
Yeah. Oh, no, basically no. So that's the very difficult point of this type. This looks like very easy, but we can change the line or rewrite the line. So basically the ink painter can image what he wanted to paint on the white paper. So Sengai can see this form before he draw the lines. So even copying the other painting, basically ink painters did not, これ英語でなんて言うんだか知らないんですけど、こう they do not do tracing, but just put painting here and paper here, and look at this and they can copy almost complete size of the form. Of course, the type of brush, that depends on the painter, so it changes. But in terms of size and form, they can almost completely do that.
Obviously, the paper used is very important to get different effects. Now, was the paper, do you know anything, about in the 16th and 17th century, let's say, was the paper used different from the papers? They have a variety available now. Was the paper used very different, so the artist would have to work differently than now?
Oh, yeah, and historically, I'm working on Muromachi period. It's 15th and 16th century, and most of ink paintings, painters use the Chinese bamboo paper, imported paper. And the sumi and fude are also imported from China. And it changed. I cannot say exactly, but probably in Edo period. Of course, even in Muromachi period, fusuma, folding doors, and then sliding screen, it uses Japanese paper sometimes. So it's a difference between the calligraphy and painting, and especially ink painting. And it changed probably late 16th and 17th century, and other type of paper imported from China, and in Japan, so the Japanese paper can be used. So the rimpa, this type, is probably a Japanese paper.
Given that practice might be quite important to get the ink just right so that you don't need to make any corrections, is there any evidence of sketchbooks where the artist has taken paper historically and just made the same, shapes over and over again? Do people find any of the old works of artists learning how to create their ink, paintings?
Mm-hmm. And do you mean the successive pattern of
successive, one after another, so that they learn and practice? And how valuable was that paper?
Yeah, before 16th century, we do not have an example, but in Edo period, we have many copies by, for instance, a Kano school of the Chinese and Japanese painting. And it's funny that sometimes I'm working on Sesshu. He's the most famous painter in Muromachi period, and the Kano school copied and make a fake of Sesshu. And sometimes 19th century Kano school painter believed that his ancestors fake as a real Sesshu, and copied the Kano school Sesshu as a Sesshu. And so the process of the copying is so complicated, but yes, we have many examples in Edo period. Right?
When you were talking about the colloidal nature of the ink and the way water repels the ink in effect, then when using washes especially, then what you're saying, I think, is that rather than imposing the ink on the paper, you're actually using water to move the ink around the paper, and it's almost the opposite of the way we think of imposing ink on paper. This is a matter of urging the ink to move in one direction or another indirectly by using water. Is that right?
Almost yes.
Okay.
It's actually today I make the talk in very simple, but the move of sumi is not so simple. For instance, this painting is on the Japanese 構造はなんて言うんだっけ? Mulberry paper. And so the nijimi is easily spread. But if you use gampi or bamboo paper from China, the behavior of sumi is completely different. And basically, this is, komaru. This is trouble for painter. If every line spread like this, they cannot paint a lot. They cannot paint. So usually they do a preparation for the paper. One is heat the paper and clutch. And so the fibers of the paper is not so strict. So it's very rough. So the water and ink can move along the space. But if one crush, we call uchigami, and then crush the space, and then it relatively it doesn't spread like this. And of course, and the dosaはなんて言うんだっけ? Sizing. Oh. Sizing. And it is said that it's after 14th century use of dosa, use of sizing. And so there are many preparations. And the other way, this is a very, the natural spread of sumi. And if you want to erase the trace of blush, put animal glow again in the sumi. And then, this is a normal sumi state. If put nikawa afterward, the nikawa goes around this place. So it moved to the colloid of nikawa sumi, nikawa carbon, and water is here. Nikawa carbon and nikawa water is changed. It's a topic of natural science. So
I think we've got one more question.
Usually people get a link to this part of the lecture.
Thank you for your wonderful talk. And then I studied a little bit about Tomioka Tesai's work. And then in his somewhat later work, I think he used the Ming Dynasty ink stick and then the color changed to somewhat vivid blue tint to it. And I was wondering, since you said even in the Muromachi period, they used Chinese ink, right?
Chinese ink, yes.
And then did it switch to Japanese ones sometime? And then can you tell by the color of the ink?
And actually, this factory, sumi factory, it's a kobai-yen, 10,000 yuan. It started at the end of 16th century. Yes. So the Nara sumi. And of course, the Japanese sumi exists. Some scholars say that from Nara period, but we have a clue in Heian period and the Marvelous age. For instance, Fujishiro, it's near Wakanoura in Ki Prefecture. It's a very famous place for with sumi, Fujishiro sumi, Shoenboku, sumi, and ink made from pine tree. So of course, sumi was produced in Japan, but the quality is high, lower than one thing is quality is lower than Chinese one, and sumi has two kinds basically, from pine tree and from oil. It's a yuenboku, oil ink. Oil ink is in Japan. Oil ink is made from almost Edo period. It's not. This one is probably Ming Dynasty's yuan, oil ink, ink from oil, and it's so good. And with using good ink stone and sumi, it's almost to fit the surface. It's not a grind, but just smoothly slipped on the stone. That's very comfortable.